So first, thank you everyone for joining us today. To start, I really just wanted to give a reminder of a couple of the social justice initiatives that I and my team have going on this year, in hopes that we can continue the conversation, in hopes that we can continue to spread the word, because I'm really proud of our team and the work we're trying to do in our communities and across the US. So one is a personal initiative of mine as a part of the Dawn Staley Leadership Award that I received early in the year. I started a grant program with the Madam Walker Legacy Center in Indianapolis, and it's actually gone live. So women can now, on their website, can now apply for the grant program. So there'll be 4 grants of $2,500 awarded to Black women, women of color that are looking to start their own business. And in honor of Madam Walker and all that she did in the entrepreneurship world, I wanted to come up with something that would empower Black women to continue to be able to sustain themselves, hopefully generationally be able to start businesses that will last for generations. As an issue in gaining capital for Black women and women of color, I felt like by using this $10,000 award that giving it right back to the community and the women that I represent, I think would be really powerful. So that's now live. Women can apply for that. A reminder that through our Fever for Change initiatives in our fund, we have 2 things going on with that still. Our sneaker auction is now live. As players continue to wear the customized sneakers, they will go up on the auction site. I think already Kennedy Burks is already up for like $650. I think hers is being auctioned off for. So you can still go on feverbasketball.com/fever for change, and it lists both our sneaker initiative and then the other one, which is our Pledge It, which is our Rebound for Change. People can still pledge for the remaining games that we have, pledge an amount per rebound, or do a one-time donation. So both of those are still happening simultaneously. Anytime that you can mention those, it's greatly appreciated, because all the money will go for our Fever for Change fund. And as a team, currently we're discussing where that money is going to go, which organizations we would like to focus on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Natalie. We'll go to questions now for everybody. Again, if you just want to raise your hand, or you can send a note in the chat and we'll get to everybody. Akeem Glaspie, you have a question?
Yes, Nat, first off, I guess my first question would be just, have you guys had time to kind of just reflect on just kind of the historic just nature of, the actions that you guys have taken over the last couple of days, and just kind of really just take it in, just kind of, again, how monumental it is for you guys to take a stand, and just all the reverberations that have been happening around the world?
Yeah, as a team, we had a couple team meetings throughout the entire process, both to make sure that we were all on the same page on where we stood in taking the day of rest yesterday and reflection. And I think it was historical, it was impactful, and at the same time, it's a day, it's a pause, it's a rest, and then it's continuance of the fight that we decided on before we came to the bubble. So for us, it's kind of nothing new. It's how can we what's the word I'm looking for? Recommit ourselves to the message that we had even before coming here. So it's kind of like nothing new, let's fight even harder. And I think that's kind of the sentiment across the league, in how can we continue to amplify the voices of those on the ground doing the work, and how can we continue to push the message of change forward.
Ben Rosoff.
Yeah, Natalie, I know you've been outspoken about mental health and the bubble situation. I'm just kind of wondering, how have the events of police brutality over the past couple of days, how has that kind of worsened things, would you say, around the league, and how are you kind of dealing with that?
It always adds to it. I've spoken on this multiple occasions because of the resemblance and the connection that it could have been a family member, or the resemblance of the connection that it could have been me, that when I take off this jersey, I'm still a Black woman, that Michelle Cusseau, Kayla Moore, anybody could have been me. that takes a toll on the mind and the heart. I think that's the part that makes it so heavy, is the reality that racism or discrimination, it doesn't pick and choose. It doesn't matter that I'm a professional basketball player. It doesn't matter that I'm a good person. It doesn't matter about any of that, that it sees the color of my skin and deems that I'm not worthy. And that's the part that hurts. But also the part that gives me the energy and the fight to want to do more, to want to push on. That not only I, but the amazing women of this league can continue to fight against all that's pitted against us, and still we rise, still we accept the challenge, and still we continue to push this and fight the status quo.
Christina Williams.
Hey, Nat. Hey, my question for you is, today's the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington. What legacies of activism has inspired your work?
Ooh, where to start? Where to start? I want to just touch a little bit on my focus on Indiana, and how having Tamika Catchings, a great not only on the court but in the community, be someone that I both played with and now is on our front office, and someone that has done the work in the community, and that I don't know if she would even call herself an activist, but most of us are kind of thrown into activism because of who we are. And I think she's been someone that's inspired me to fight for a seat at the table, and someone that's inspired me to continue to give back and want to improve the community that I call home of Indiana, of Indianapolis.
Carolyn Peck.
Hey, Natalie, as a woman and a Black woman, can you talk about the courage that it has taken for you all to take a stance, to take a pause, even with the jeopardy of potentially losing the opportunity to play, losing a salary? So often women are silent because they are providers, and so they take it because they have to continue to receive an income. But you guys have shown that courage to step up in spite of that.
I think something NECA touched on yesterday, and even our meetings, was staying rooted in the reason why we came. Unfortunate, and this is unfortunate, but that the reason why, as a majority of a league that's a majority of Black women, the reason why we've been given this platform is because we put a ball in a hoop. But I think, like I said, NECA echoed it yesterday, but it's important that we take that moment and take that pause to reflect, to gather ourselves, to speak in unity, but at the same time, in remembrance of why we even came to this bubble. And that was to say her name. That was to make sure that these Black women that we were touching on, both in instances of police brutality, in instances of lack of equal pay, in instances of mental health, in instances of Black women being forgotten, that was the reason why we came, was to say her name, was to make sure that Black women were not forgotten. So if we take away why we're given that platform, if we take away the basketball, we don't get the mic. We don't get the opportunity to speak for women that don't have this chance, that don't have the mic. So yes, it was necessary for us to stand with our brothers of the NBA and collectively as in WNBA, but at the same time, we needed to recommit ourselves to why we came here. Remind ourselves that it's bigger than this moment, it's bigger than me, it's bigger than all the players that are here, that what we represent is way bigger than putting a ball in a hoop.
Akeem, you have another one?
Yes, Natalie, I understand there was a players meeting on Wednesday and then a following candlelight vigil afterward. Was there anyone that shared their story or, shared anything that really stood out to you either during the meeting or the vigil afterward?
So it was not that it matters, but it was reversed. We had the visual first and then we had a players meeting afterwards. And I think two things in the visual that really stuck out to me were, one was a couple of the male coaches actually came up and spoke about how we as women have been inspirations to them, how we, with the courage that we show every day, with the fight that we show, with our dedication to our communities, that are inspirations to them. And I think that really hit home for me. I think a couple coaches touched on how they're proud to have their children here or around us as strong Black women, to be role models for them. So that really hit for me. And then also Leisha read Maya Angelou's Still I Rise poem. And that was important. Because like I said, it's hard because it feels like sometimes you're just like running into a wall. Like you hit something and it's like, oh, that door is closed. And you're like, well, is it closed because I'm a woman? Or is it closed because I'm Black? Or is it closed because I'm a Black woman? And then you try to go another way and it's closed. But that reading her, hearing that and hearing every other line in Still I Rise was a reminder that keep going, that it's worth it, that it will be worth it, that the work you're doing is important, and still rise. Every day still rise because it's necessary.
Christina, do you have another one? No. Carolyn Peck?
Natalie, understanding the intensity of the season, can you take us through, and with how active you are, like what your typical day is like?
These past 48 hours have been.
Can you take me through that?
I paused because I was thinking about if I could, and honestly, it's all kind of blurred together. I don't even know if I could. I just remember yesterday coming out of practice and my phone was blowing up. And I've been in the executive committee for like a whole 2.5 seconds. Like it's been a week and I was just like throwing in the fire, sprinkle a little gasoline on, add a couple lighters to it, like just the whole fire. And from calls to meetings to, oh, we're playing the games and then we're going to reconvene after the games and figure out a plan, to, okay, just kidding, they're not playing, we're not playing, to, we need to hop on a call right now, Nneka's on the bus on the way to her game, we need to plan a visual. We have New York staff, thank God for them, ordering candles in an hour before a visual, like unprecedented historical moment of all 144 players in one room, one meal conference room, players sitting on the floor, trying to call and Zoom in our executive committee staff with Terry and everybody, to another 2 hours or so conversation with just the executive committee after the group meeting and trying to figure out how can we use this moment, getting Holly to come into the conversation. Holly, can we get on TV tomorrow? Can we utilize the spotlight to continue to push our cause and our conversation of change? To, don't even remember what time I went to bed, waking up the next day and trying to figure out what time we were going to get on SportsCenter, trying to coordinate all the other players to make sure that we got together, trying to coordinate my team, because that's normally what I would do. But I'm like, Candace, can you get everyone together to get over to this thing? And then more calls and some sleep in there. And then after the ESPN Sports Center, I came back here and I made dinner for my team. My team came over. We had dinner. And then I went to sleep somewhere in there.
Wow, that's amazing. It's the strength that you all show and the tenacity of doing so. So how do you now balance all of that and, prepared to play the game that you have the platform for? Like,
Yeah,
it's got to be just so much going on in your mind.
it is a lot. It definitely is a lot. I mean, my only thing is like, I think the kind of uncertainty of it all is a little bit new, but having compact schedules and being kind of spread amongst multiple avenues is not new for women of the WNBA. I said this earlier today. A lot of my fight and kind of like, I guess, courage comes from like that moment of being in that room and like seeing everyone around me and like really looking at people and remembering like, she has her kid in this bubble in the middle of a pandemic. She owns a business. Amani's in law school. Like, pardon my language, but we're some dope ass women. And like, yes, the schedule might be a little hectic, but it's like, ain't nothing new. We just got to do a little bit more, but it's nothing new.
Alan Carter.
Thank you. Hey, so apologies if this feels like an obvious question, but for people that are at home, what do you hope the takeaway is over the past 48 hours?
Which part? So many to choose from. One, I think I was having this conversation. Who was that with? Can't even remember who it was with, but I was having the conversation of, I think it was Tiffany Mitchell, of how important and how powerful it was how we stood together as 144 players and how unified we were in standing with the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, and everybody, how unified that was, and how there's powers in numbers. And you can take that to any different avenue, in that there's power and strength in numbers. And I was thinking that in a conversation, we were having a really in-depth conversation about the Black community in general, but being a league of majority Black women, and the symbolism and what it stood for, and the courage of standing together and being unified in a decision, it's powerful. That's what makes it historical, is that there was no division, there was no question. Washington brought up the idea and stuck firm in it, and we banded together because that's what we do. That's what the WNBA, that's what WNBPA does, is no matter what, we stand up for each other and we stand with each other.
And a follow-up, how do you quantify whether or not this moment is successful or that you reached a goal that you wanted to accomplish in making the stand?
Honestly, in seeing yesterday, in going in the hotel and seeing my coworkers smile and seeing my coworkers relax and seeing my coworkers rest, that's how I quantify the success. Yesterday was a day of rest, a day of reflection, and a day for us to mentally and emotionally take a breath and carry on the journey and carry on the mission that we set out to do by even coming here. I deem that success by, after our team meal, my teammates showing me on their phone the screenshots of them registering to vote or them checking their voting registration. That's success to me. That's 10 more people in this room alone. That's me checking my emails and seeing my emails to Daniel Cameron, to people demanding change. I think we took the day yesterday to ourselves, to re-energize, but we also took it to refocus and make sure our actions are backing up what we're asking people to do. That's vote, that's prepare to vote, that's spread the word, that's to bring others along with you. So I deem it a success already. I deem us being here a success already because we've done the work. We continue to do the work. And you can never question that the WNBA isn't going to do the work.
Akeem, you have another one.
Yes, Natalie, you kind of answered this question already, but I know when we spoke Tuesday, you were really feeling the weight of just another police killing, another loss of Black life. Was that weight and around the league, was there ever a talk of a season-long kind of boycott that was maybe the best way to kind of get your point across that this needs to stop?
No, to my knowledge, no. So in the conversations that I was involved in, no, because like I said, in that meeting, we talked about taking that break and taking that pause, but the energy and the focus remained on why we came to the bubble. And that was to say her name. That was to demand justice. And that was to do the work on education and pushing the conversation that we wanted to, that change is necessary. So in the conversations that I was involved in, no, because if we sat out the rest of the season, that would take away this platform, and this would take away the microphone from us and take away the opportunity from us to do the work that we've been doing in our communities and across the country.
Natalie, we had one from Christina. She had to jump off, but the last few days have been filled with so much emotion and passion. How have you been able to channel those emotions into advocacy?
Honestly, I don't know. Because yesterday when we were doing Sports Center and we were meeting beforehand, like on the car on the ride over, we're going through the kind of the plan on what was going to happen when we got to Feld for the interview. And anybody who knows me, I am 150% a prepared person. I like to know what's going on so I can gather my thoughts. And we were going through the run of show in the car on the way to the Feld. And all I kept thinking in my mind, and anytime I have conversations, as I think about my sister, I think about my brother, I think about my boyfriend, I think about his 5-year-old son. And that's why I speak. That's where I find the strength. Because like I said, it could be any of us. Mason's 5. I don't want him to live in the world that we do. I don't want him to have these conversations that we do. Is it realistic to think that we'll change in 10 years or so? Not quite sure, but I know that I'll do my part in any way that I can. Because I want him to be judged on who he is in his merit, on what he does, not because of what he looks like. And then I remind myself, don't cry, Natalie, because you can't speak when you cry.